This is Movietone. Jeffrey Sumner reporting. Remember this picture? When the Queen and the Duke dined with Sir Winston and Lady Churchill at number 10, it was a particularly notable event in the year 1955. It marked the retirement of Sir Winston as Premier, almost the end of an epoch. As goodbye was said, it was to a great statesman whose long life had been spent in faithful service to the Crown. Soon a general election was held, accompanied by all the familiar scenes of excitement in London and indeed throughout the land. The Conservatives won a conspicuous success under the leadership of Sir Anthony Eden, being returned with an increased majority, something that rarely happens to a party in power. The morning after, everyone on the way to work was reading all about it. Seems quite a long time ago, doesn't it? But the government was quickly faced with a grave situation, the dock strike. Newsreel pictures told the story of exports held up. Damage to the national economy was also caused by the railway strike which followed. Though a few trains did run, the stoppage was the most complete for many years. And, well, I expect you remember. For millions, the daily questions were how to get to work and then how to get home again. It was just a case of carrying on till a settlement of the dispute was reached. Now for the highlights in the sporting calendar. The Grand National was run in some of Aintree's worst weather, but all the thrills were there, as always, in this world-famous steeplechase. After the last of the 30 jumps, the issue was settled by Queer Times, who raced home to win easily. At Wembley, Manchester City and Newcastle United fought out the cup final. After being 1-1 at half-time, Newcastle took the lead and later got their third through Hannah. Jimmy Schooler received the cup. Now a flash from Epsom. Cardington King led the Derby field round Tattenham Corner and into the straight. Then Panis-Sipper took over, but from way back, Phil Drake came with a devastating run to win for France. Sport on wheels next, with that brilliant British rider Jeff Duke notching victories. He's been champion many times. Racing driver Sterling Moss, for long a star of the Mercedes team, won fresh laurels. With Mercedes out of it, he'll now be starring in the Maserati team. And Mike Hawthorne, another young Briton at the wheel, proved himself one of the world's best. Donald Campbell and his Bluebird set a new world water speed mark on Ullswater. But not content with that, and in spite of grave setbacks, he later raised his own record to 216.2 in America. Athletics were in the 1955 news more than ever before, with British stars right in the headlines. Chris Chataway, for example, set a 3-mile world record. Diane Leather, British 880 yards champion and the fastest woman miler in the world. Thelma Hopkins cleared 5 feet 7 1/4, the world's best for the year, and won many big events. Brian Hewson, the youngest man to do the mile in less than 4 minutes, is also an 880 star. And Gordon Pirrie came back in terrific form after his foot injury. He succeeded in achieving a great ambition by twice defeating Zatopek. If Gordon's Achilles tendon holds out, he and other British stars may prove gold medalists at Melbourne. Here, preparations for the 1956 Olympics have long been underway. In Britain, of course, the weather is always in the news, and no people are more surprised than the British when they enjoy a really beautiful summer. 1955 will long be remembered on this account alone. All the summer events were held in almost perfect conditions. No one expected the sun to go on shining week after week, but it did. Everyone made the most of it, and heatwave scenes in London and other big cities recall the year when Britain bathed and basked all through the summer months. Efforts to end the Cold War by the summit conference at Geneva did produce the intangible Geneva spirit, but this was not destined to survive. Sir Anthony Eden led for Britain. Monsieur Faure, the French Premier, also spoke frankly with the East, headed by Russia's Premier Bulganin. For the United States, of course, President Eisenhower. It was in this Denver hospital that the American president was treated for his sudden and very serious illness, a heart attack. His recovery and convalescence at Gettysburg was welcome news the world over. Her Royal Highness Princess Margaret carried out the most important and exacting task she had yet undertaken when she made her tour of the West Indies. It was outstandingly successful and immensely popular in all the islands she visited. It was after Her Royal Highness had returned from performing the signal service to her country that speculation about her future grew in intensity. The climax was reached when Group Captain Peter Townsend came over from Brussels. Finally, a personal message was issued by the Princess, whose courageous decision evoked complete understanding and sympathy. The royal attendance at the opera was the most brilliant event of the state visit by the President of Portugal. President Lopsh and his wife were guests of Her Majesty during their stay, which underlined a friendship between the two nations which has lasted over 6 centuries. Of all the newsreel pictures taken in 1955, the most charming were those permitted to be filmed at Balmoral during the royal family's summer holiday in Scotland, with Prince Charles and Princess Anne, the Queen and the Duke, enjoying a respite from royal duties, a happy and devoted family, assured of the nation's loyal affection. It was towards the end of the year that Mr. Attlee decided to give up his 20-year leadership of the Labour Party. He accepted the honour of an earldom. Elected as his successor was Mr. Hugh Gateskill, and the former Chancellor of the Exchequer takes over at the age of 49. Now, what of the general situation in Britain? Industry has been going all out, and employment has reached a state in which almost every trade and occupation is crying out for more and more manpower. Certainly that's a cheerful note on which to end 1955. Opportunity beckons.